Welcome to the Madison Miller podcast. Today's guest is the founder of the Berger Shop. You can find them at thebergershop.com. Ryan Berger, it's been a long time since I've had you on.
Great to be back. Just been sharpening my podcasting skills, being a guest during the COVID time period, and I'm ready to rock.
Yeah, I'm ready to rock too. The NBA got back into gear last night. 2 fantastic games. I think the NBA couldn't have asked for a better first night in Orlando. What did you make of the 2 games last night with the Jazz and the Lakers coming out winners of their respective games?
Great night for the league, great night for the country, great night for that sports is back. The ability, really the first night you felt like you could channel surf, go back and forth between, as Adam Shine likes to say, your New York Yankees, my New York Yankees, our New York Yankees, and over to TNT for the NBA, which was fantastic. And as usual, the NBA, does an unbelievable job of just the court looks great. The games were amazing. Closeness of them, and then even the NBA gives you stuff to talk about after. Zion not playing the way most people wanted him to play, so that becomes the conversation today. It just continues to roll with the NBA and the incredible word of mouth, and the fact that they got 2 great games is really a testament to the ability to choose the right teams and to have 4 good teams and 2 really good teams.
Yes, I thought last night was tremendous. The Jazz coming back from the big deficit against the Pelicans. Zion not playing, I know, is the big story out of that game. And then my big takeaway from the second game, even though the Clippers lost, Paul George looked absolutely tremendous. The game-tying 3 was unbelievable. LeBron comes down for the game-winning shot. Speaking of the Lakers, do you think they'll rest guys because they're close to clinching that 1 seed, or after they clinch that 1 seed, do you think they'll start resting? And the same can be said for the Clippers as well, because they like to do the rest thing as well.
Well, those guys have been resting for 5 months, so I think actually at this point, getting guys to be in game shape, I thought you saw some guys that were last night and some guys that were not. And in this game, you had a lot of guys that have clearly realized they have chances at the championship, so stayed in shape. Paul George is one of the 10 or 12 best players in the league. I mean, he is really good on both sides of the ball. One of the best defenders in the league and an incredible scorer. I think both teams will lock up things, and then the guys are going to play. I think they probably won't play as much. They will play. They need to get in game shape, and they need to be sharp getting into the playoffs. And they've had a lot of time off to rest. The first game I thought was really interesting. I was disappointed in the Jazz defense in the first half, especially a team that's built on defense when they start guys like Royce O'Neal and Rudy Gobert in the middle. That really is a defensive team with always a defensive practice. And as the game went on and their defense continued to get worse and worse and went into halftime, things really changed in the second half, and they really brought them more of a defensive mentality, which allowed them, to get back in the game. The Pelicans are a very young team and explosive. They've got some unbelievable talent. B.I. was great last night and is just so improved. Redick doesn't miss. And I'm a big Lonzo Ball guy, and Holiday is really good, but I'd almost think that at some point that team would be better off with letting Ball run the team. I think, as they have a chance to move Holiday, who's got a big contract, that'll alleviate some stuff. The second game was just, a classic that it's that ended in an interesting way, but actually on the defensive end with LeBron, and that's what LeBron's about. I mean, he comes down, and while the shot that he made was kind of a chuck to the basket and a rebound layup, didn't shoot the ball great most of the night. That just absolutely locks up defensively, which my takeaway was how well defensively all game he played. He put on one of those Game 7 kind of efforts. His defense, which has always been one of the best in the league, was lacking a little bit over the course of the year because he's 35 years old, and bringing it on both ends every night is really challenging. But he brought it last night on the defensive end more than anything. And that's what won them the game there after that shot he made. He locked up Kawhi and Paul George and several times on that end of the floor and secured that, Lakers win 103-101.
Yes, that was a fantastic finish. Like I said, the Paul George game-tying three. LeBron hits the go-ahead shot, and then LeBron's defense at the end of the game was just tremendous. It was absolutely peak LeBron James there. You mentioned the Pelicans.
And then when the game's over, he then spends 25 minutes discussing what's going on with the world and racism and, speaks incredibly eloquently about the whole thing. Right off the court, 20 minutes. Then takes questions after, says all the right things. He's one of a kind for sure.
Absolutely. LeBron is one of a kind for sure, as a person and as a player for sure. We talked about the Pelicans a little bit before. Do you think they get that 8th spot in the East, or do you think Memphis or Portland or somebody else gets it?
I think it depends on how much they're going to play Zion. If he's going to play 15 to 17 minutes a game, then they're going to say we're not that interested in getting that spot, and maybe they're not. David Griffin and my guy Trajan Langdon over there running the team now, those guys are very, very smart, experienced guys and know what they're doing. If Zion's going to only play a quarter and a half to 2 quarters a game, I don't see them making the playoffs. But if they're going to unleash him, then they got a shot at, and they can get into that play-in tournament and try to cause some havoc, and maybe they're trying to just get into that and see what happens. So I think it only comes down to what Zion's workload is going to be, and that'll be the answer to that question.
I agree with you. And Portland plays today against Memphis, and that is a huge game because obviously Memphis and John Morant have that spot right now, and then Portland, everybody's high on because of the return of the 2 big men, Nurkic and Collins. What do you make of Portland's chances of potentially getting that 8th spot?
It's in a couple months, and then basically a year and a half. Nurkic has been out almost 2 years. So I don't expect a ton from him. I'm a big Zach Collins guy. I loved him in Gonzaga. Again, but it's between the injury and the time off. He's basically been out almost a year or two. So it'll be interesting to see what happens and how much he I think Memphis is tough. They're very, very young, and they want to get that spot. So I like Memphis in this game a little bit today. But, it's funny. This all feels like a college atmosphere. NBA teams playing at 2:30, discussing big games on a 2:30 afternoon on a Friday. It almost feels like the conference tournaments a little bit. I got that feel a little bit last night. Neutral court, similar announcers, Ian Eagle calling the game, and you look out and it feels like a Valparaiso 14 seed playing a 3 seed Villanova. It's a lot of fun, and hopefully it'll continue. But teams like the Pelicans and the Grizzlies are a lot of the reason why it's such a young, almost like NCAA-like feel out there.
Yeah, I agree with you about the Grizzlies, by the way. I was looking at the gambling lines for the games today. Portland's a 3-point favorite. I love Memphis in that spot because I think the Blazers have the minus by them in the Vegas books because of the return of the big men. And I agree with you. I kind of like Memphis in that game as well, and I think they might actually get that 8 seed. I think they're being a little disrespected in this tournament. I'm a big fan of John Morant, too. Who is the team or a player that you think has the most to prove in this tournament?
The most to prove, or the team. Well, I guess in the West, I think the team that has the most to prove, or I would say has the biggest upside, is the Nuggets. They're very, very built for the bubble, I like to say. They're very young. They're interchangeable. They're an AAU team with a European superstar on the team. They've uncovered 2 draft picks that are total steals in Michael Porter Jr. and Bol. Denver, while not a lot to prove because they're so young, to me has a real chance to shake things up a little bit. In the East, I think the question around the Bucks, after not getting there last year and having such a great year this year, is what'll happen. How good are they? Can they bounce back after all this time off and continue to shoot the ball the way they did? How healthy are they with guys like Bledsoe having the coronavirus? So I would say that the Bucks have a lot to prove, only because not to prove how good they are, but to actually prove if they can win. Because to go down there at this point, we know how good everybody is. The question is, can you win? And I think the Bucks are going to prove whether they're able to win or not in the bubble.
Yeah, I agree with you about the Bucks having a lot to prove, and how they flamed out last year. You mentioned Bledsoe and how disappointing he was in that Raptors series last year. I think that is a narrative that's kind of lingering out there as well. So I'm interested to see how the Bucks look. Another team I'm intrigued by in the Eastern Conference and I think has some upside is the Miami Heat. And plus, I think coaching is also very important in the bubble as well. And I like Eric Spoelstra as a head coach. What do you make of Miami's chances to go on a run in the Eastern Conference?
Yeah, I think Spo is very good also, and that's a great, one of the great organizations led by Riles. So I wouldn't put anything past them. I don't have them in my top four in the East. I'm not sure why. I just kind of like four teams more than them in the East right now. But nothing would surprise me. I think Indiana's taken a step down, losing Sabonis.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So I think Miami, I think is probably right there in the top five. So it's not like the top four that I think are that much better, but they clearly are a wild card and have that coaching and that star power to clearly take a shot at this thing.
Yeah, I think they have a shot as well. That's my little dark horse in the Eastern Conference, Miami, and I agree with you about Indiana. I think losing Sabonis was a huge blow for them. I thought he was tremendous this season, made a huge leap. Similar to Bam Adebayo in Miami, ironically enough. Like two big men in the East that made big leaps this season. We talked about coaching before, and the Knicks have their new man in Tom Thibodeau. I know this is non-bubble related, but it's a huge NBA story. At first, I really wasn't in love with the hire, but at the same time, I was somewhat relieved because I was fearing that Daily News report could have been true about Jason Kidd, but luckily the Daily News was wrong. I did not want Jason Kidd. Tom Thibodeau, I like the hire now more than I did maybe a couple days ago. What do you make of the Tom Thibodeau hire with the New York Knicks?
Did something happen in the last couple of days that I didn't know about with the Knicks that make you change your mind?
I just came around a little bit on it only because of I was just thinking about Jimmy Butler and the Bulls, and I think he doesn't get enough credit for Jimmy Butler becoming Jimmy Butler. And same with Derrick Rose and Joakim Noah. It's just like how Minnesota ended made me feel the way I felt originally. And then the other reason was of how badly I would have wanted Kenny Atkinson, because I thought he fit the Knicks very well. But hey, I've come around on it. I like the hire now more than I did maybe when it first got reported.
So, a couple things. I think that, Bondi at the Knicks at the Daily News is usually wrong. So, his Jason Kidd piece, which could have been coming from Jason Kidd actually, was incorrect. I see both sides to this. On the one hand, I think Tibbs is a really good coach, and you can't go wrong hiring Tibbs. On the other hand, his mentality and his coaching philosophy is not necessarily as popular in the league as it once was. The Knicks are a very, very young team. with more first-round draft picks in the next 3 years or 4 years than anybody in the league. So finding a young coach who has an offensive philosophy that is progressive, new age, and different is something I yearn for. And I think Knicks fans, do too. The last time the Knicks were good, it was all about the way Thibodeau plays. He's also best friends with Jeff Van Gundy, so they have the same sort of principles, right? Defense and physical basketball and tough practices and running guys into the ground. And while that shouldn't really bother the Knicks' young legs, there's a part of me that thought, well, if they could have found an Atkinson or a younger coach who had more of an offensive philosophy, that may have been a better fit. And I'm not against that. In fact, there's part of me that believes that. At the same time, it's very difficult to say that Tom Thibodeau is not a very good coach, or that the people that support him, Krzyzewski, Van Gundy, and many others who are, the former Celtics players that
Doc
are
Rivers,
the USA basketball guys, they love Thibodeau. So I see both sides of it, and I think we'll have to see. I think this is going to start with Mitchell Robinson in the middle, who's going to be, a defensive player of the year for many years, and that'll be where he builds his defense from, Thibodeau. So we'll see. Has the game, quote unquote, passed him by? I don't think so, but I do think there are more progressive minds that might be better fits, including a guy like Mark Jackson, who obviously had incredible success with the Golden State backcourt and what they were able to do offensively. So there's a wait-and-see game, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm in the wait-and-see mode with the Knicks, as you just mentioned. But yeah, it should be interesting to see how it plays out. I think this hire does actually benefit Mitch Robinson for the reasons you said. Because look at how he did with Joakim Noah. I know the Karl Anthony Towns thing didn't work out, but that, I think, had to do more with the Timberwolves than it did have to do with Thibodeau and then all the drama with Jimmy Butler. That was not Tom Thibodeau's fault. So, yeah, there's cases to be made that it wasn't all Thibodeau's fault in Minnesota. And I thought that Minnesota gave him a raw deal. And the same thing I felt about Frank Vogel with the Magic. And then when the Lakers hired Frank Vogel, I remember the media and fans are kind of mocking the hire. And I actually was praising the Frank Vogel hire because he was fantastic in Indiana. And it just didn't work out for Orlando. There's similar, situations. Not situations, but you know what I mean. It's similar in a way.
So much of it also comes down to the organization and the franchise, and the Knicks. I'm excited at the new. Leon Rose is a very well-respected basketball guy, and they've got a lot of connectivity going on in there with World Wide West, which really will help them hopefully attract more players, since I think the biggest challenge they have right now is actually attracting players that want to go there and play for the owner. So having somebody in between that is really, really connected, and I know they're very interested in hiring Kenny Payne, the assistant over at Kentucky, who is very, very close to Devin Booker through my sources. So I do think that they are thinking the right way. But the only way to get guys in and to really win, it doesn't matter who your coach is, having the right players. And they've struggled at getting players for a long time because of really the owner. And that should hopefully change with the arrival of World Wide West.
Absolutely. I was praising the World Wide West hire. And it's funny because, again, I believe it was the New York Daily News was the people that said that he wasn't coming. And then he is here with the Knicks. So I'm very happy with that. And I'm intrigued by Leon Rose as well. Before we go, quickly, we'll switch over to baseball. We mentioned the Yankees at the top of the show and how great last night was. What do you make of their 4-1 start to the season so far?
They're loaded. I mean, they're loaded. The lineup is loaded. Stan looks great. It looks like he's in much better shape. Just looks tighter coming around on the baseball. They're loaded. They've got guys up and down the lineup, as do other teams like the Twins. But they're and then you add the best pitcher in baseball, who's got 18 wins in a row in the regular season. He's an absolute horse. And one of the underrated things about even a guy like Stanton is he doesn't have to worry about the crowd reaction. He doesn't have to worry about fans booing. And that's a big, people talk about New York being such a tough place to play. Well, without fans and limited media, it's a very different kind of almost laid-back experience in that kind of scenario. And Cole, just quietly has sort of integrated in with the team, not much attention, no big articles, no big interviews, nothing. No big spring training, sit down with Bruce Beck, just focus on the game, go home, focus on the game, and just quietly integrated into the New York City. You add that with, the bats that they've got, they're 4-1, barely, not even playing great baseball, missing maybe the best closer in the league and some other players. Hard to see them not, getting to the World Series this year. Very hard to see them not getting there.
I agree with you. And Chapman's back, by the way, 2 negatives, and he's back. So that is very good news for the Yankees. So maybe he'll be back tonight for the Red Sox in the home opener. One more thing before we go, related to the Yankees. It came out with their home opener, what their plans are for tonight. What do you think of Susan Waldman singing the national anthem? I think that's funny. But it's interesting.
There's nothing like Susie Q, her and Sterling, and I know John's out this weekend, but they're the best. They're a great listen. Baseball is a great radio sport. They are the best to listen to. They make it so fun. And in a way, with everything going on with, COVID, it's a great way to change things up a little bit and listen to them. Susie's always had a great voice from her days at WFAN, and I look forward to Susie hitting all the notes tonight.
Me too. All right, it was a pleasure to have you on. Unfortunately, we can't have you on longer because you have other plans. Hopefully to get you on again as this restart is really into full form and more storylines will emerge. I hope you have a wonderful day and enjoy sports being back.
You too. Thanks for having me on, and we'll speak to you soon.
Yep.